Okay, so for this recipe we're going to start off with the base. What we're going to do is we're going to make a Nutella cookie instead of the normal biscuit mix. So we can go in with about a cup of Nutella. So just scoop it out. One egg. Just crack it on the side rather than the bowl so you don't get any shell in there. And 100 grams of sieve flour. So that can go in, and then we're just going to give that a quick mix. And when it's all combined, we can press it into the bottom of the baking pan. So once that's nicely combined, you're going to have a nice cookie dough ball. So it's always a good idea, if you're into Nutella, you can make a double batch, and then one batch for cookies, one batch for the base. And then we're just going to press it into the bottom of the mold. This mold has been lightly greased with some butter, and then I'm just going to press it. Take off the ring, you'll be able to see the thickness of it. Pretty much that batch for this ring is going to be a bang on, nice little, not too thin, but you don't want it all biscuit. So by the time it's pressed out, that will be good. Okay. So can preheat the oven to 180. And then the ring can go back on. Just push it into the corners to make sure there's no gaps. Otherwise, what will happen is when you put your mixture in, you're going to have some cheesecake mix leaking out of the sides. So just press it, make sure it's all pressed into the corners nicely. And that can wait to go into the oven. Okay, so for the cheesecake mix, I've got 3 eggs. They can go straight into a mixing bowl with some sugar, and we're going to whisk that until it becomes really pale. So eggs and sugar can go in together. And then once that's really pale and light, we can go in with our cream cheese. So it's 400 grams. So there's the first 250. And then just over half of the second packet. It doesn't need to be super accurate. And we can go in with that. And turn it on again. Make the 400. And then at this point, just make sure it's really well beaten, because if there's any lumps of cream cheese in there, you're not going to get rid of them through the cooking process. And then when it comes to slicing it, you're actually going to get those like white blobs of cream cheese all the way through. So at this stage, just make sure that it's really well mixed, because afterwards, all we're going to do is fold in some cream. And so you want to be really light with that. So it's really any aggressive beating has to happen now and not when the folded cream goes in. Okay, so the cream cheese is really well mixed in there. So we're just going to take this off and pour this into a bowl. And then just give the mixing bowl a quick rinse out. So we can go in with the cream. So it's 100 mils of thick cream. So we can just gauge that. So this is a 600 ml pot. So that will do. And then we can just put the cream on full until it becomes firm peak. So the cookie dough base can go in now. That's only going to need about 6 minutes because you don't need it to cook all the way through because you don't want it to be too hard once the cheesecake is actually done, because you remember you're still going to have the cooking time with the cheesecake mix in there. Okay, that is firm already, so that can come out, and then you're just going to have it so it's really, really thick. So that was the 200 mils of cream, and then you can just fold that into the cream cheese mix. And today's one is Nutella, but I use exactly the same recipe for all my cheesecakes and then mix up the toppings and the base. So I've always got a really good cheesecake recipe. So one that I used to do before was you can get a bottle of Bailey's, half a bottle, and cook it down until it's a really thick syrup, and then you can add this into the mix as well, and then with the rest of it you can make like a Bailey's caramel and top it off with chocolate, and that's an amazing cheesecake as well, which is exactly the same recipe apart from the additional Bailey's. So we're just going to fold that one in. If you want, I'm going to leave it plain, but if you want to have Nutella all the way through, because we're going to make a chocolate Nutella ganache to go on top of this, so we're going to have Nutella base and then Nutella on the top. But if you want to, you can just warm some Nutella up and then just add it straight into this stage. Just a couple of tablespoons to give it a bit of chocolate and hazelnut flavour, and then that mix is ready to go in. So we're just going to check on our cookie dough now, and that's only just starting to firm up, so it's got about another 3 minutes to go until it's firm enough to put this mixture on, and then we're going to knock down the temperature down to about 120, and we're going to cook it really slowly. So what happens with the eggs, you can cook it, if you're under the pump, you can cook it much quicker, but because of the eggs, what happens with the high temperature is it rises, and as it rises it splits, so then when it cools down it collapses again, so then you just end up with a crater in the middle of it. It doesn't matter too much because you can cover it up with chocolate, but it's just much nicer when you come to slice it, that some slices will have the chocolate deeper than others and it will just be uneven because of that crater. It doesn't matter too much, but if you've got the time, it's just a nicer way to cook it. So it takes like double the time. Normally if you're going to cook it you can do it at 160 for about 25 minutes, or we're going to do it at 120 for about 40 minutes. So that's almost there. So by the time he's had his 40 minutes in the oven, that will have cooked through. So we can pile this on top. Place it in the oven, knock it down to about 120, and we're going to check back in 35 minutes and see how it is. Okay, so it's been in for 40 minutes now, and we're just going to give it a test. So I'm just going to spike it with a skewer, and you can see that there's a little bit of mix there, but not too much. So it's going to cool in the oven, so with the heat of the oven, that will cook through by the time it's done. The oven has been off now for about 20 minutes, so that's cooling down. So the next thing to do is to make a ganache. So in a small pot, I'm going to fire up a pan, and when making a ganache, normally it will be 2 parts chocolate, 1 part cream. So you chop up your chocolate, bring the cream to the boil, add it, mix it, and then normally a cube of butter to give it a nice shine. Because Nutella is already a little bit softer, we're going to make it 3 parts Nutella to 1 part cream. So we're going to put in some cream. And then in a bowl, I'm just going to add my Nutella. So it's 3 parts, so you're going to need about 150 grams. All you want is enough really to cover the top of your cheesecake. So, and you don't need to be super accurate. So I've got some butter here, and that will help it firm up slightly as well and give it a nice shine when it's cooled down. So I'm just going to take a touch off of that now. So it's a really small amount there. And then we're just waiting for the cream to come up to the boil, which it's done already. Turn the heat off and then just pour that over with the Nutella. Give it a mix. You can just throw in a little bit of butter. And then we can take our cheesecake out. And then just pour this mix on top. And then just spread it around. There should be a tiny little lip on the edge, and you just want to push it up to that point. You don't want it to, the chocolate actually to touch the ring of the pan, because when it goes into the fridge, the chocolate sets and then it sticks to the pan. So when you come to release it, it's going to, it will rip it. So if it does touch it, then just make sure that you run a knife around it. That is the Nutella cheesecake. So we're just going to stick that into the fridge for about 10 minutes just to firm up the ganache on top, and then we'll be good to cut it up. So this is pretty much cool now. So as I put it in the fridge before, I got some of the Nutella ganache hit the side. So just grab a knife and run around the edge, just to make sure that it's not attached anywhere. And then you can just pop it off. So that is it. So got a nice colour, a good amount of biscuit base down there. And then, let's get rid of that. And then for this one, which is quite important, if you're doing like dinner party slices, is that you heat up the knife. So you can just use a pot of boiling water, but otherwise just run it through the flame, just so you get really nice clean slices. So it doesn't need to be super hot, it's just to go through the chocolate. And then between slices, just make sure the knife is clean. Just gently prise it out, and that's it. There we have it. So it's still slightly warm, so if you leave it set completely, you won't have any of this runoff, but it's such an awesome cheesecake. So let's give it a go. We've got a Nutella cookie base, the baked cheesecake mix, and then Nutella Ganache on top. So let's go into this. You can just see how soft it is. So wow, that's good. That's so light and airy, really soft, great amount of Nutella through there. So it's a great little recipe. The cheesecake mix works for pretty much any baked cheesecake that you want to do. As I said before, I've done like reduced some Baileys and thrown it through. You could also get some freeze-dried raspberries or strawberries and then put them through the mix and then finish it with a white chocolate ganache on top. That's another really good one for the summer. So there's loads of possibilities that you can do using this method, like mixing up the base and mixing up the top. So give it a go. And so if you like this video, consider subscribing, hit the bell to get notified when I put my next video up. And until then, happy cooking, and I'll catch you in the next one.